Welcome to another video from me, namely my first thoughts and breakdown of the significant job changes to Dark Knight inside of Shadowbringers. Unfortunately, since I didn't have the chance to participate in the US media tour, I have to trust and rely on the information provided by other YouTubers like Larry or MrHappy, so props to them for all their work and effort in presenting us these changes. So let us start right into the matter. The first thing that I have noticed is that there are no significant changes to Hard Slash, Siphon Strike, Unleash, Unmend, Shadow Wall and Living Dead, which are kind of the abilities that don't need it to be reworked, because they already fill their purpose. The removed skills on the other hand are much more decisive. Dark Arts has been removed completely as an active spell, but now is featured on the Blackest Night, but more to that later. Your Enmity combo is completely gone as well, as Blood Price and Dark Passenger, which I really like, but it seems to be formed into new versions that correspond much better to the new gauge and MP using system of the Dark Knight. And last but not least, we will lose Soul Survivor, which I kinda liked regarding as concept, but its implementation was really bad. As you may have already noticed, they are going to change the basic tanking and off-tanking system of every tank, meaning that all the offensive stances are removed and we now have an improved tanking stance, without any reduction to our damage output. So we can just make a decision whether to use them, if we want to main tank or let them off as off-tank. That again is also empowered by having it off of the global cooldown, providing even faster decision making and tank swaps. For dungeons this is also great because we can permanently have it on, meaning to have tons of enmity through all the damage tanks seem to deal nowadays, and especially will deal in Shadowbringers, according to the actual values we can see in those videos. Above that, our tanking power is enforced by a new trait called Tank Mastery, which simply gives us a 20% damage mitigation and more HP through Vitality and more damage through Strength, which kinda sounds a bit redundant, because Strength and Vitality should have this function anyway. But maybe we can make use of this with materia or in accordance to buffs from other jobs. Another change has been done to Soul Eater, which now restores HP independently from grid, and increases blood gauge by 20 instead of 10, because I think they have removed other resources to gain blood gauge. Blood Weapon really has changed a lot, since it increases our blood gauge by 10 for each weapon skill or spell, which is great and synergizes much more with Unmanned, Abyssal Drain or spells like these that are used from a far distance. I really like that idea, but on the other hand it doesn't increase our attack speed and recast timers anymore, which I personally regret a bit, because it made the Dark Knight's combat style very fast and reduced waiting times for weapon skills a lot. But I think they installed some compensations in the form of a vast selection of OGCD abilities. Dark Mind has been adjusted as well to work without the use of Darkside, and has been reduced by 10%. Salted Earth, or awesome Final Fantasy version of Death and Decay, now doesn't generate any blood gauge and has a 90-second recast timer, which is a big nerf to that ability, but I think this is all to compensate all the AoE abilities we are gaining now. Plunge, our gap closer, completely is the same, but now with 2 charges improved through a trait we will receive in the leveling process. That is really awesome. Abyssal Drain seems to be no longer our AoE spamming friend, but now has its worth inside of the single target rotation, for being an OGCD that also restores HP for yourself. The same applies for Carve and Spit, that still is an OGCD, but now without any Dark Arts synergy, so just grants us MP back and has a flat 200 potency. I really like having many OGCDs, thanks in advance for that square. While Quietus and Bloodspiller are now just flat damage abilities, they indirectly have undertaken a big change because of the changes to Delirium. This can now be seen as our form of inner release, because it makes our Bloodspiller and Quietus free of the blood gauge cost, and also lets them regenerate MP on landing. This kinda sounds great, and I hope that this new bursting phase doesn't take us into the spot of the warrior, but more grants us his advantages and climatic outbursts. But overall I think it's a solid rework of the former, just increased blood weapon duration, and is much more action based instead of an active spell doing passive increase of another active buffing spell, which really was, stupid. I'm really excited to see this working. Obviously the biggest change has been made to the Blackest Knight, but before covering it, let us turn over to the new abilities in synergy for it. The first is an OGCD called Flood of Darkness, which is a straight line AoE with 250 potency to all enemies in that line, costing 3000 MP, and a single target version called Edge of Darkness, that deals 350 potency, costing 3000 MP as well. As its AoE brother or sister, it grants us a Darkside buff, which is a flat damage increase and is maintained and upheld through the use of each of these abilities. At level 74 they are transformed into heavier hitting versions, Flood of Shadow and Edge of Shadow, with much more potency. This seems to be the case because otherwise they definitely would be too powerful at lower levels. The best thing about them is their previously mentioned synergy with the Blackest Knight. If our TBN is completely absorbed, we are granted a Dark Arts stack. That makes the use of one of these abilities free and is kinda the new version of Dark Arts. But I personally really like this idea because costing the same 3000 MP, it doubles the value of the Blackest Knight, having a defensive worth additionally to the possibility to use one of our MP costing OGCDs. This increases the value of a correct used TBN even more than it already did. So I personally find having our Dark Arts system strung around 3 abilities with TBN, being the most powerful if used correctly, is a fantastic way to get rid of the useless spam of it, turning into using TBN every 15 seconds correctly, forcing us to proper damage mitigation. That means if we don't use TBN at all, it isn't a DPS waste but a waste of defensive potential, which is great for newcomers to not completely fail at dealing at least most of their average DPS. Stalwart Soul is another new skill combo dependent on Unleash, which is also increased with its potency, and granting us MP as well as 20 blood gauge. That seems to be one of our key skills to form a new AoE rotation. This idea of tanks and maybe healers having their own AoE rotation I really welcome, so we have to make much more decisions and calculations when to use AoE rotations instead of single target ones. Let us wait for the theory crafting people to form all these information into spreadsheets. I'm really excited and trust in the already accomplished theory crafting by Yoshi P's team as well. Another new ability, Dark Missionary, granting a magical damage mitigation to the whole group by 15%. Finally, raid utility for the Dark Knight.
It's about time.
Unfortunately, it's not against melee damage, but most of the raid busters are dealt in a magical way, so I think that should make the deal as well. The biggest one, yeah, we all are very hyped for this, is Living Shadow, which is the thing that makes our job the coolest of them all. It costs 50 blood gauge points and summons our inner darkness onto our side to accompany us in dealing some significant burst damage. I suggest that this is somehow our second burst phase, split off from Delirium, because of having a higher recast timer of 120 seconds. It will only line up at the opener if we can manage to maintain 50 gauge points in a fast time, and on the 4th use of Delirium again. So maybe to line it up with a potion for an insane bursty opener and mid-fight re-opener with potion being ready again. If a potion will still be in game in Shadowbringers, I really don't know that. Nevertheless, it's awesome, and our Shadow will deal insane amounts of damage and seems to not mirror our attacks instead of just smashing in skills by himself. That seemed to have similar potency and just are alternated for stylistic reasons. And that's it for the new stuff. Let me put all these information together. First of all, Dark Arts is gone, which I personally really welcome, and its remnants inside of TBN are a great way to divide experts from newcomers without loss of DPS, mainly defensively. More than ever, we are blessed with so many OGCDs I can't even remember all of them. I think those were 4 to 5 if not counted in all the buffs and big cooldowns. This will definitely compensate the speed decrease by losing our blood weapon haste effect, and make this a great new version of a fast-paced style. Above that, MP management seems to be a much bigger topic in Shadowbringers than it ever was, and I am definitely looking forward into the leveling of the Dark Knight to evolve all this step by step. I highly welcome the new changes to tanking in general, even when taking out some difficulty and required knowledge and courage when to tank in off and when in death stance. It makes life as tank much more easy and hopefully lets us focus more on the essentials, namely our own combat system and the stuff that we have to deal with our enemies. So all in all, these changes really seem very interesting and seem to approach many of our misalignments and concerns about how the Dark Knight had become in Stormblood. And yes, stylistically the new changes are a blast. Becoming the Warrior of Darkness seems more obvious than ever due to these upcoming abilities. I hope that I could summarize all these changes for you, and if you like this and want to see more of my thoughts on the new jobs, let me know, and I will put down all of them in the next week, while finishing my Shadowbringers preparation series as well as the 2 last missing Stormblood rotations for Monk and Ninja. Thank you for watching, and we see us in the next video. Until then, take care.